Greetings and welcome to the Modern Alchemist Channel. I'm Aubrey Force, the Modern Alchemist, and this is Alchemy Journal, Home Improvement Edition. So, you guys haven't seen me for a while. I needed to get things together enough so that I could let you know what was going on. And what happened was I physically moved my residence, which I'd been living in some time, and have a new one. My wife and I purchased a new home, and we're sitting here and we're in remodel mode right now, necessary. Like right now we're just repainting the kitchen. But while I was sitting here working on the remodeling and stuff, and I'll show you what's really been keeping my attention, I decided that I would take a moment and share with you some cool stuff and give you like an insight on some esoteric things while I'm sitting here doing it. Now, one of the fun things is this is a perspective shot, meaning that I have purposefully manipulated the position of the camera. That's it, just the position relative to certain fixed lines behind me. Now, I want you to realize my house is not like some bizarre fun house, although it is sort of, because it was built 75 years ago and it's got this whole, wobbly floor thing going on. But it's not this wobbly, although some people might think it is. But this is the cool thing, and a lot of times when you're working with the esoteric, they embed within something a symbol, for instance, cubes. Cubes. You might notice that when someone has a camera, like a director chooses to fix on a particular character, they might have the corner of the room sitting right there, which gives the illusion of a three-dimensional cube. Also, like a lens flare, purposeful lens flare. If you look above my head, you'll see something that Vince McMahon takes advantage of literally every week in wrestling when he has one of the cameras move up and it just kind of goes through the stands, and you'll see a couple well-positioned lights and they'll have this lens flare which creates this kind of a diamond thing going like this and this. And then of course the mind just creates that line, and of course what is that? What is that? That's this. That's this. That's the seal of Saturn. I have a whole video that talks about that. And so if you look up at the lights, you'll see that this lens flare, there it is right there. You can see it's coming down and going up, and the mind creates the horizon for you. But there it is. It's that. And if I had better lighting, this is just my kitchen lighting, that would probably be able to illustrate the point better. Another is this. Watch this. Ready? Oh, I'm getting smaller. Oh no, my house is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah, so a lot of times you can do this too. Now, all I did was actually move away from the camera, but it does seem like I've suddenly been able to, I'm big. So those are some fun things that you can do. And of course, as I'm working through and doing the remods on the house, I often think about stuff like this. Now, I'm going to give you one more little nugget here. And this nugget is in response to a whole bunch, well actually, of questions, because there's a few things I wanted to talk about briefly. But let's start off first with the eclipse video. Now, I did spend some time and I wrote a response because there was a whole lot of trolling going on. A lot that you guys actually didn't see, probably, because they put some kind of link in there and it automatically Google pops that stuff out for me. But a lot of the sentiment, of course, what I observed and what I wrote about was this, that it seemed apparent to me that those who didn't actually participate in the eclipse felt really badly about the coverage, and they then lashed out at people like myself who said in their minds, hey, I'm going to just kind of focus here because all of you can look up there or see videos, but I wanted you to kind of catch the human response, because I knew I needed to remind myself of how important that event was. It changed a great deal for me, and this is one of the reasons why I haven't put anything out or published anything, was because the concept of synchronism really hit me like a sledgehammer. What synchronism is, and it deals with the concept of eyes. The eye of Horus, the eye of Re, the Wadjet eye, each of these eyes and what they mean, synchronism plays a role in that. And the short version is this, that a star in and of itself, as I've described in classes previously, it functions as an eye. We also function as an I because we self-identify. We see ourselves and say I. So we echo the presentation of the universe fractally at that point, where we become a fountain through which the universe functions. Stars do the same thing, just on a scale that's so massive that our ancient ancestors collectively said gods, right? They were like, these are gods because look what they can do. So when you see two stars then, or two celestial objects move together and form a conjunction, you have a new opening, a new aperture relative to the subjective perspective that is witnessing the event. So if you're witnessing that event in line and you're seeing that, you're seeing from our ancestral standpoint the birth or presentation of a god. So when I saw that, I saw the silver-haired goddess of the moon. It was so obvious. I was like, there she is. And I felt her presence. And by that, I'm speaking figuratively, you guys, okay? Like, there was no goddess there. It was the moon in front of the sun. But from the ancestral perspective, you could feel that her presence had a cooling effect, that it was chilling, in fact. And all of the associations, the wind picking up, the lighting dimming down, certain things activating, which, anyone who reads any kind of fantasy books like Jim Butcher's Dresden Files, let's say, you'll immediately go, I can see where there's this opening where things could happen and then they would close. And you definitely felt that. So I'm going to talk more about this. I'm sorry I haven't had time. I'm doing all this right now, right? So I haven't had time to do it, but I just want you to know I haven't forgotten you guys. So that's synchronism, and it's still sitting here in my mind as I meditate on what had happened. Now, this brings me to point number 2. I have had, a lot of you write me and ask, what is meditation? Like, what do you do? Because I am convinced, and over the years as I've taught how to meditate to people, people are always like, well, this is nothing like I thought meditation was supposed to be. So first off, I would invite you, if you are unfamiliar with what the actual meaning of the word is, to just do a quick Google search. The meaning is, saving you time here, is to contemplate, to ponder, to think about. So there's no point in meditation, especially in Western esoteric tradition, where meditation is where you're kind of like, that is the door, that's the start, that's where you're beginning, right? And then you go somewhere. The point is to still yourself so that you can feel the subtle nuances of the universe as they present themselves. But then you have to have a brain that's actually full of understanding of certain principles so that you have something to contemplate. If you don't, now you're just stuck, because then only things of a mundane nature will have entry into your consciousness. You have to be able to fill it with other things, and this is why I became an astrotheologian, why it occurred to me that I already had performed that function for years, but now I was like declarative, yes, this is what I do. And the reason for it is because I was seeking the source of those contemplations. So that when I sit in front of a small image of Shiva, say, and I contemplate Shiva's posture, the fact that he's dancing, the fact that he's standing on a small person, the fact that that person's standing on a lotus, and that there's illumination around him and what his hands may or may not be doing. I am contemplating that relative to the context and overall presentation of that mythology. When you do that, you have synchronism of meditation, where you take this idea and a spiritual concept, say, but a scientific idea and a spiritual concept, and they begin to come together and merge into a single unified understanding. When you study what our ancestors understood, you will come to understand that they were far more sophisticated than current anthropology gives them credit for. And I would challenge modern civilization to do as good following such a calamity that they must have undergone with the extinguishment and the reorientation of the solar system to its current phase, its current setting, from what it was before, as has been presented in astrotheology, okay? From literally 1,000 different voices and cultures, all speaking to the same events using the same concrete archetypes. For me, it goes beyond this Jungian idea that these archetypes are somehow embedded into our consciousness, although I believe the resonance of those archetypes absolutely are. But the archetypes themselves and their presentation, in my mind as an astrotheologian who seeks to unify science with our ancestral understanding of mythology, and recognize that that is an application of science, it's a preservation of science, in understanding the dynamism that took place in the interplay of those deities, okay, those ancient gods and goddesses. When you understand that, you can understand the source point of all that power and what they understood, which is a presentation of universal physics. They got to observe within recorded human history and then preserve for us literally the birth and death of a star, which we now call Jupiter. And they witnessed the death of an ancient star that had guarded them for as long as there was memory up until that point, and watched it extinguish with the intervention of a new celestial body in that environment. So all of that is described, and I am at a comfort point now in my understanding relative to that story that I can present it at a later date. I am glad that I have delayed because I've allowed myself to have some time. I realized that I had been looking at the picture from a two-dimensional standpoint, and that I needed to insert the third pillar of the Kabbalah and recognize where that fell relative to the celestial narrative, how that applied. Now that I've done that, I'm comfortable with relating what I believe is the pattern, and that's what I've come to term it. It's the pattern of mythology that is presented over and over and over again, and its interplay is relative to current bodies in our solar system and their astrological and astrotheological presentation. So that's stuff to look forward to, and I'm definitely going to be doing it. Now that I have a new home, I have a small studio and my office and everything, and so I'll be able to produce a lot more, but of course I have all this, and of course the pièce de résistance, right, is this. See, we didn't know when we had purchased it, and apparently the inspector had missed it, that there was some significant damage taking place to the house as a result of water in the walls. And that had leaked and left some damage on the floor. And so the inspector said, hey, the floor is a little damaged, probably have to replace this, but it looks like the subflooring's fine. And he didn't see any leaking or anything. Well, after I had moved into the house, now we had never used this bathroom, but I had noticed that once the water was turned on all the time, it was getting softer and starting to seep water through the floor. Next thing you know, I took up the flooring, and there was this huge mess, and it just kept leaking, and there was water under the house. And so this is my bathroom. It's literally straight out of one of these home improvement stories, right? Where the water was actually leaking through the wall behind the shower there, a typical location. So I had to break out the wall and look at the floor. And then at first we thought that maybe it had to do with the plumbing here, because all the damage was right here at the floor here. But it actually wasn't. It was leaking. The gravity was just drawing it right down here into this pool, and then leaking down through the floor. You can see the timber in the subflooring is cracked. Yay, I get to replace subflooring. So all of these mundane things are also occupying some of my attention. And so you'll have to just be patient with me as I work to fix and restore this. But in the meantime, I figure what I can do is along the way, if you guys don't mind, I'll take a minute while I'm doing all this and maybe just share something with you so that, we're still working out together. This won't take me forever, but it definitely is taking a lot more time than I thought it would. And I thought maybe you ought to know what's going on, because seriously, I genuinely love and appreciate the emails that I have received. And it's often, it is sobering that 2 years after having completed a particular kind of work, you get an email and someone says, wow, thank you. So it's just something, it's like the gift that keeps on giving. So I will continue to provide, and thank you very much. Thank you very much for your support. It keeps me going. And for those of you who think that I'm getting money for this, I wish. Oh my God. Some of those troll letters are so funny, you guys. I'm not going to share them though, because you have to have my sense of humor to find the, mean that can be funny. But I'm not inviting any, by the way. But definitely, I'm not an Illuminati troll, although I did do that on purpose just for funny. Because it's there. Look, I got the whole thing, right, with the double square. And I'm just doing that to show you it's done all the time. And sometimes I don't think people do it on purpose. Now, with wrestling, I'm 100% sure that that's on purpose, because current wrestling is amazingly dense with esoteric stuff. And I know I've said I'm going to talk about it. I totally can talk about it. I just, life, dudes. I got to do life too. So I'm going to do both and see if I can't get more done here, because I've got all the fires under control, right? The house isn't floating away anymore, and I know all this water seeping everywhere. So now that that's under control, we can do other things. Okay, well, I'm Aubrey Forrest, the Modern Alchemist, and this has been just a super brief, maybe not so brief, Alchemy journal. And I just kind of, home improvement edition, just to give you an idea that, hey, I'm still out here, I still love you guys, I'm still thinking about you all the time, and I'm definitely going to bring some more light to this rather dense information in as many different ways as I can, to just kind of show you that it is done, and it's done that way, and that's what people do when they know what they're doing, you would think. I don't know. Anyway, I'm Aubrey Forrest, the Modern Alchemist. I'll be talking to you soon.